Marcus Blackwell's $3,000 briefcase hits the marble floor with a sound like thunder. But he doesn't hear it. He can't hear anything except what's coming from upstairs, something that stops his heart cold. His son is laughing. Not the forced mechanical sound David makes during therapy sessions when the specialists tell him to try harder. Not the hollow echo of a child going through motions he doesn't understand. This is real laughter. Pure joy bubbling up from somewhere Marcus thought had died 8 months ago when Emma took her last breath. David hasn't truly laughed since his mother's funeral. Marcus has spent a fortune trying to bring that sound back. Behavioral therapists, speech specialists, sensory integration experts, all of them with impressive degrees and higher price tags, all of them failing to reach the 7-year-old boy who lives in his own beautiful, unreachable world. But right now, from David's sensory room, comes the sound Marcus would pay any amount to hear. His Italian leather shoes slip on the polished floor as he rushes toward the stairs. His hands shake as he grabs the mahogany banister, the same banister Emma used to slide down when she was feeling playful, the same banister David used to avoid because the wood felt wrong against his sensitive skin. The laughter grows stronger as Marcus climbs. It's mixed with another sound now, a woman's voice, soft and melodic, speaking in rhythm with David's giggles. But it's not Dr. Rodriguez, David's latest therapist. It's not Mrs. Patterson, the nanny who quit last month because David was too challenging. This voice is different, warmer, patient in a way that money can't buy. Marcus reaches the second floor, his chest tight with hope he's afraid to feel. Through the crack in David's door, he sees something that stops him breathing entirely. A young black woman sits cross-legged on the sensory room floor. Her dark hands move in smooth, fluid gestures while David, his son who hasn't made eye contact with a stranger in months, watches her every movement with fascination. Then David's small hands begin to copy hers, creating shapes and patterns in the air between them. They're signing. David is signing. Not the forced, clinical sign language the therapist tried to teach him, but something natural, something that flows like music between two people who understand each other completely. And they're both laughing like it's the most natural thing in the world. Marcus grips the doorframe, afraid to move, afraid to breathe, afraid this moment will shatter if he acknowledges it. Who is this woman? How did she do in minutes what specialists couldn't do in months? Why is his son, his unreachable, beautiful, complicated son, responding to her like she speaks his language? If you've ever felt like you were failing someone you love, you know Marcus's panic right now. Hit that like button if you believe every parent deserves hope. The woman's voice carries clearly through the crack in the door. Blue car goes with blue cars. David, you understand patterns better than anyone I know. Her words hold no judgment, no attempt to change or fix or improve. Just pure acceptance of who David is in this moment. David holds up a red car, and she nods with genuine delight. Yes, red car for the Red family. You're teaching me your system. Marcus has never heard anyone talk to his son like that. Like David is the teacher instead of the student. Like his way of seeing the world is valuable instead of something to overcome. The woman shifts position, and morning light catches her profile. She can't be more than 25, with kind eyes and gentle hands that move with practiced confidence. This isn't luck or magic. She knows what she's doing. But how? And why is she here, in his house, in his son's sacred space, creating miracles where experts have failed? David suddenly looks toward the door, and Marcus holds his breath. But instead of the meltdown that usually comes when David notices him watching, his son simply waves, a small, deliberate gesture that means hello in David's private language. The woman follows David's gaze and sees Marcus through the crack. She doesn't startle or stop what she's doing. She simply smiles and continues organizing toy cars with David, as if having an emotional billionaire father spy on them through doorways is perfectly normal. "Daddy's home," she says to David in the same warm tone she's been using all along. "Should we show him our car sorting system?" Marcus realizes he's crying. When did that start? When did the tears begin flowing down his face like he's mourning and celebrating simultaneously? This woman, whoever she is, has done something no amount of money has been able to accomplish. She's brought his son back to life. But the question burning in Marcus's chest isn't just about David. It's about her. Who is she? How does she know exactly what David needs? And why does watching her with his son feel like watching someone complete a puzzle Marcus didn't even know was broken? Hey Soul Thread family, if you'd like to support the channel and help us keep creating these stories of hope, I've pinned a support link in the comments below. Thank you for being part of this journey. 3 days earlier, Zoe Williams sits in Marcus Blackwell's home office, her hands folded carefully in her lap. The leather chair costs more than she makes in 2 months, but she doesn't let herself think about that. She needs this job too desperately to be intimidated by marble floors and mahogany furniture. Her last family moved to Seattle without warning, taking her steady income with them. Now she's facing hard choices: pay for her brother Jamal's weekly therapy sessions, or cover Grandma Rose's new heart medication. Both feel impossible to sacrifice, but bills don't wait for better options. The employment agency said the position was simple housekeeping. Clean, organize, stay invisible. Perfect for someone who needs steady work without complications. Marcus types on his laptop while she waits, his attention split between her interview and whatever crisis demands his immediate focus. His questions come automatically, like he's reading from a script he's used countless times before. Previous experience with household management? 5 years with the Morrison family. References available. Comfortable with flexible schedules? Yes, sir. But Zoe sees what Marcus misses while he's focused on his screen. The family photograph on his desk sits face down, as if looking at it causes too much pain. Prescription bottles for sleep aids catch the afternoon light. Not one bottle, but 3 different medications from 3 different doctors. The desperate purchasing patterns of someone who can't find rest. Children's toys scatter the corners of his office like abandoned dreams. Building blocks stacked in perfect lines, then knocked over and left. Sensory fidget toys that expensive specialists recommend. Books about child development with bookmarks stuck in chapters about communication difficulties. Marcus finally looks up, his eyes carrying the weight of sleepless nights. I should mention, my son can be challenging. Previous household staff have found him difficult to manage. He has specific needs that require patience. Zoe's trained ear catches every word he doesn't say. Hand flapping when excited. Sensitivity to certain textures. Communication struggles that frustrate everyone around him. She's heard this exact description before, lived with it daily for 19 years with her brother Jamal. But she doesn't mention that. She doesn't explain that she understands autism from the inside, that she's spent years learning how to communicate without words, how to respect sensory boundaries, how to celebrate small victories that others might not even notice. Instead, she simply nods and says, "I'm good with children." Marcus studies her for the first time since she entered his office. Really looks at her, as if trying to determine whether she'll last longer than the others who've quit when David's needs became inconvenient. The position starts immediately. Mrs. Chen will show you around the house and explain the basic routines. David typically keeps to himself, so you shouldn't have much interaction with him. Zoe agrees because she needs the job. But already she knows Marcus is wrong about one thing. David won't keep to himself for long. Children like him recognize understanding when they find it, even when that understanding comes from unexpected places. She leaves the interview with a house key and hope she hasn't felt in months. Not just hope for steady income, but hope that maybe, finally, she's found somewhere her experience matters instead of something to hide. Zoe hides her expertise because she needs this job. Comment, strength, if you've ever had to downplay your abilities to fit in. Walking through Marcus's mansion that first day, Zoe catalogs everything the specialists have missed. Light switches placed too high for small hands to control. Harsh fluorescent bulbs that would overwhelm sensitive eyes. Rough textures on furniture where a seeking child might rest. But she also sees potential. Quiet corners that could become safe spaces. Windows that let in gentle, natural light. Room for routines that make sense to a child who finds comfort in predictability. She doesn't change anything that first day. She cleans and organizes and stays mostly invisible, just like the agency promised. But she watches. She learns David's patterns, his preferences, his beautiful way of creating order in a world that often feels too loud and too much. By the end of her first shift, she knows exactly what this family needs. The question isn't whether she can help, it's whether Marcus will let her, once he discovers that his simple housekeeper understands his son better than the expensive experts ever could. Day 5 changes everything. David stands at the kitchen sink, his small body trembling with the kind of devastation that comes when your whole world shifts without warning. His blue cup, the only cup he's drunk from for 3 months, the cup that feels right in his hands, the cup that tastes like safety, sits trapped behind the dishwasher's glass door. The morning routine has collapsed. No blue cup means no chocolate milk. No chocolate milk means no breakfast. No breakfast means the entire day feels broken before it begins. David's scream cuts through the mansion's expensive silence. It's not the tantrum Marcus's family calls it. It's pure anguish from a 7-year-old whose predictable world has suddenly become chaos. Mrs. Chen, the previous housekeeper, would have offered different cups. Look, David, here's a green one. And a yellow one. They work just the same. Logic wrapped in frustration when the child couldn't understand why substitutes should matter. The nannies tried distraction. Let's go play with your trains instead. Forget about the silly cup. As if David's need for his specific cup was something to overcome rather than understand. The therapists recommended firm boundaries. David needs to learn flexibility. Don't give in to his demands. As if his sensory needs were manipulation tactics rather than genuine requirements for feeling safe. But Zoe does something completely different. She sits on the kitchen floor, close enough for David to know she's present but far enough away that he doesn't feel crowded. She doesn't tell him to stop crying or offer solutions he can't accept. Instead, she simply acknowledges what he's experiencing. "You want the blue cup," she says in the same calm voice she uses for everything. "Blue cup not ready. That's frustrating." David's screaming continues, but something shifts in his posture. Someone heard him. Someone understood that this isn't about being difficult. It's about his world feeling wrong. Zoe reaches into David's toy bin and pulls out his collection of small cars. Without saying anything, she begins organizing them by color on the kitchen floor. Red cars in one group, blue cars in another, yellow, green, purple, each color finding its family. David stops mid-scream, his attention caught by the familiar pattern emerging on the floor. Cars belong with cars of the same color. That makes sense. That feels right in a morning where nothing else does. Slowly, still sniffling, David crawls closer to watch Zoe work. She doesn't look at him directly. Eye contact feels too intense when emotions are running high. She just continues creating order from the scattered toys, letting him observe from whatever distance feels comfortable. Then something miraculous happens. David picks up a red car that Zoe missed and gently places it with the other red cars. He doesn't speak, doesn't make eye contact, just contributes to the pattern they're building together. It's the first time David has initiated connection with anyone since Emma died. "Thank you," Zoe says simply. Red car belongs with red cars. You understand that better than anyone I know." They work together in comfortable silence, building systems that make sense to David's beautiful, organized mind. No pressure to be different, no attempts to change him. Just two people creating something orderly and peaceful together. When Marcus comes home that evening, he expects to find David in his room, emotionally exhausted from the morning's meltdown. Instead, he discovers something that stops him in the doorway. David and Zoe lie on the playroom floor, each building their own road system with colored blocks and toy cars. Their roads run parallel but separate. David's perfectly straight and organized by color, Zoe's more curved but equally purposeful. They're not talking, but they're completely content in their shared silence. "How was your day?" Marcus asks carefully, still amazed that David weathered the blue cup crisis without the usual hours of aftermath. David looks up and signs something Marcus doesn't recognize. Zoe translates without being asked. He says it was a good day. He learned that red cars and blue cars can both be important. Marcus stares at his son, who returns to his road building with calm focus. 5 days ago, a missing cup would have meant a ruined day for everyone. Now David has tools for handling frustration, and more importantly, someone who helps him feel understood instead of broken. Zoe met David where he was, not where she thought he should be. Share this if you've ever needed someone to accept you exactly as you are. "How did you do that?" Marcus asks quietly. "The blue cup thing this morning. Mrs. Chen said he was inconsolable." "I didn't do anything," Zoe replies, still focused on her block road. "I just listened to what he was really saying. He wasn't being difficult. He was telling us his world felt wrong, and he needed someone to understand that." Marcus watches his son carefully place a yellow car on his yellow road section, and realizes he's witnessing more than just good childcare. He's seeing what happens when someone loves David's mind exactly as it is, instead of trying to change it into something more convenient. The question forming in Marcus's chest isn't just about David anymore. It's about this woman who sees his son so clearly, who creates peace where experts created frustration. What else could she teach them both? 3 weeks later, everything changes with the sound of expensive tires on gravel. Marcus sits at his kitchen table, not in his formal dining room, not at his mahogany desk, but at the simple wooden table where real life happens. David perches in the chair beside him, picture cards spread between them like a bridge connecting two worlds. Zoe sits across from them both, her patient hands demonstrating the sign for happy. "Like this, Daddy," David says, his fingers forming the shape while his face lights up with genuine joy. "Happy means this." Marcus copies the movement, clumsy but determined. His hands feel too big, too corporate for this gentle language his son speaks so fluently now. But David giggles at his father's attempts, and that sound makes every awkward gesture worth the effort. This has become their evening routine. Not homework or behavioral drills, but family time where everyone learns David's language instead of forcing him to speak only theirs. The Bentley's engine cuts through their peaceful moment like a blade. David's hands stop mid-sign, his body instantly alert to the change in atmosphere. He knows that sound, knows what it means. Grandma Patricia is here, and when Grandma Patricia comes, everything feels different. Harder. More complicated. Marcus's jaw tightens as expensive car doors slam in his circular driveway. He glances at Zoe, who quietly begins gathering the picture cards. They both know what's coming. Patricia Blackwell doesn't knock. She has keys to this house. Keys that came with Emma's trust fund. Keys that remind Marcus daily that his wealth isn't entirely his own. She sweeps through the front door like she owns the place because, technically, part of it still belongs to Emma's estate. Her heels click against marble with the authority of someone who's never questioned her right to be anywhere. She follows the voices to the kitchen, and when she sees the scene at the table, her horror is immediate and barely concealed. "Marcus, darling," she says, her voice carrying 40 years of country club breeding. What exactly is happening here? 3 adults and 1 child sit around a simple kitchen table, picture cards scattered between them, hands moving in gentle communication. But Patricia doesn't see family learning together. She sees hierarchy disrupted, boundaries crossed, the natural order of things disturbed. Zoe starts to rise, recognizing her cue to disappear. But Marcus places a hand on her arm, a gesture that doesn't go unnoticed by his sharp-eyed mother-in-law. "We're learning sign language," Marcus says simply. "David's been teaching us." Patricia's smile could freeze fire. "How? Interesting." She pulls Marcus aside, her manicured fingers gripping his elbow with surprising strength. Her voice drops to a whisper that carries clearly in the open kitchen. "Emma would be mortified," she hisses. "The help doesn't sit at the family table, Marcus. You're confusing David about his place in this world, and hers, and teaching him that hand-waving nonsense. He needs real therapy, not coddling from someone unqualified to make decisions about his development." David's breathing changes. The adults are talking in low, urgent tones, and even though he can't hear the words, he feels the tension like electricity in the air. His hands begin moving in small, rapid gestures, not signing now, but self-soothing motions that help him process stress. Patricia notices immediately. "See," she snaps, her voice sharp with vindication. "He's getting worse. This woman is making him worse. Look at him. He's more agitated than ever." But Zoe sees what Patricia misses. David isn't getting worse. He's responding normally to adult conflict. His self-soothing behaviors are exactly what any child his age would do when sensing family tension, except David's responses look different because his nervous system processes stress differently. "Those are calming techniques," Zoe says quietly. "He's managing his anxiety exactly like we've been practicing." Patricia's eyes flash with something cold and calculating. "I don't recall asking for your professional opinion." The words hang heavy with implication. Professional opinion from whom? The hired help? The woman who doesn't belong at this table, in this house, in this family's business? Marcus feels the moment crystallizing around him like ice forming on glass. His mother-in-law stands in designer clothes worth more than most people's cars, her pearls catching kitchen light like armor, demanding he choose between David's well-being and family approval. David's hands move faster now, his breathing becoming shallow as the adult's conflict escalates around him. He doesn't understand the words, but he feels the battle lines being drawn, feels the safe space they've built together starting to crack under outside pressure. Patricia claims to love David while destroying what helps him. Type protection. If you've ever had to defend someone vulnerable from people who claim to care. "This has gone too far," Patricia continues, her voice gaining strength from Marcus's silence. "I'm calling Dr. Whitman tomorrow. David needs proper intervention, not this experimental nonsense. And we need to discuss appropriate boundaries for household staff." She says household staff, like the words taste bitter, like acknowledging Zoe's humanity requires effort she's unwilling to make. Marcus watches his son's distress increase with each harsh word, sees how adult dysfunction creates chaos in a child's carefully ordered world. The choice his mother-in-law is demanding isn't really about sign language or kitchen table hierarchies. It's about whether Marcus will protect the peace his son has finally found, or sacrifice it to maintain relationships built on judgment rather than love. The question burns in his chest. Will he choose his son or his family's approval? Because Patricia's making it clear he can't have both. 2 days later, Patricia strikes back with reinforcements. The family meeting convenes in Emma's former sitting room, a deliberate choice that makes Emma's absence feel like a presence judging from above. Her portrait hangs over the marble fireplace, watching as 3 generations of Blackwell family wealth gather to discuss what Patricia calls the problem. Marcus sits stiffly in the velvet armchair that used to be Emma's favorite, feeling like a stranger in his own home. His brother James has driven down from Boston, his face carrying the concerned expression of someone convinced he's staging an intervention. Sister-in-law Victoria perches on the antique settee, her designer handbag clutched like armor against whatever unpleasantness this situation requires. "We're worried about you," James begins, his voice carrying the careful tone people use when they think you're losing your mind. "Patricia called us because she loves you. We all do. But you're not thinking clearly." Victoria leans forward, her manicured hands folded in practiced sympathy. "Grief makes us vulnerable to inappropriate attachments. It's completely understandable, Marcus. You're a single father under tremendous stress. But this situation has gone beyond what's healthy for anyone involved." The implications hang heavy in the expensive air. Inappropriate attachments. As if caring about David's happiness constitutes some kind of psychological breakdown. As if seeing Zoe's competence with his son represents weakness rather than recognition of excellence. "She's wonderful with David," Marcus says quietly. "He's happier than he's been since Emma died." Patricia adjusts her pearl necklace like she's loading ammunition. "Happiness isn't the goal, Marcus. Development is. Structure. Appropriate boundaries. This woman has no credentials, no training, no business making decisions about David's therapy. And the way she's inserted herself into family routines." She pauses, letting the unspoken accusations fill the silence. "What exactly are you saying?" Marcus's voice carries a warning, but his family doesn't recognize it. James jumps in, playing peacemaker. "We're saying David needs professional help. Real help. Not someone who happens to be good with children but lacks the qualifications to address his specific needs. And you need to think about appearances, about what's appropriate for a man in your position." There it is. The real concern. Not David's well-being, but Marcus's reputation. Not whether his son is thriving, but whether the family's social standing can survive Marcus treating the help like an equal. Victoria's voice softens to maternal concern. "We've researched excellent programs. Residential facilities where David could get intensive, professional support. You wouldn't have to manage this alone anymore." Marcus feels ice form in his veins. Residential facilities. They want to send David away because his needs are inconvenient, because his progress with Zoe doesn't fit their understanding of proper treatment. "Zoe," Patricia calls toward the doorway. "Would you join us, please?" Zoe appears in the entrance to Emma's sitting room, summoned like a defendant called before judges who've already reached their verdict. She's changed into her most professional clothes, a simple black dress that makes her look like she's attending a funeral. In many ways, she is. She's prepared to resign quietly. She's been through this before with other families who decided her presence threatened hierarchies they valued more than their children's happiness. She won't fight for a job that causes family conflict, won't make David choose between her and his extended family. "We think it's best if you seek employment elsewhere," Patricia says with the tone of someone delivering mercy rather than cruelty. "We'll provide excellent references, of course. But David needs professional intervention now, and your informal approach is no longer appropriate for his developmental stage." Zoe nods with dignity that makes Marcus's chest ache. "I understand. I'll finish this week and help you find someone else." The adults nod with satisfaction, another problem solved through financial leverage and social pressure. David will get real help, Marcus will return to acceptable widowhood patterns, and the natural order of things will be restored. But then small feet pad down the hallway, drawn by the sound of raised adult voices. David appears in the doorway wearing dinosaur pajamas, his hair standing up from sleep. He takes in the scene, adults arranged in a circle around Zoe like she's on trial, his father looking trapped and defeated, the woman who makes his world make sense preparing to disappear forever. His small hands begin moving with desperate urgency, forming the most complex signing he's ever attempted in front of his extended family. "Zoe, stay," his fingers say clearly. "Zoe, help. Zoe, friend." The room falls into shocked silence. David, who supposedly needs professional intervention to communicate properly, is communicating perfectly. He's advocating for himself, expressing his needs, making his feelings known in ways that cut through all the adult complications and politics. Marcus looks at his son, really looks, and sees not broken behavior that needs fixing, but a child desperately trying to protect the person who understands him best. Marcus chose his son over everyone else's approval. Hit subscribe if you believe protecting the vulnerable is worth any cost. David needs consistency, Zoe translates softly, her voice thick with emotion. He's saying his world works better when the people he trusts stay in it. Patricia huffs with frustration. He's 7 years old. He doesn't understand what's best for his development. But Marcus understands something his family doesn't. David knows exactly what's best for him. He knows the difference between being treated like a project to fix and being accepted as a person to love. He knows Zoe sees his autism as part of who he is, not something to eliminate through intensive programming. Marcus stands up slowly, his decision crystallizing with each breath. Emma's portrait watches from above the fireplace as he looks around the room at people who claim to love David while demanding he sacrifice what makes David thrive. "Get out," he says quietly. The words land like stones in still water, creating ripples that will change everything. "Marcus," James starts. "Get out," Marcus repeats, his voice carrying the kind of quiet authority that built his business empire. "All of you, get out of my house." Victoria's mouth drops open in shocked offense. "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. David just told you what he needs, and you dismissed him because he's 7. But I'm his father, and I'm telling you the same thing. Zoe stays. David stays happy. And anyone who can't accept that can leave." Patricia rises from her chair like an offended queen. "You'll regret this choice, Marcus. When this experiment fails, don't expect us to clean up the mess." Marcus picks up David, who wraps small arms around his neck with relief. The only mess here is thinking David needed to be different to deserve love. The door closes behind his family with the finality of bridges burning, leaving Marcus holding his son while Zoe stands witness to the moment everything changed. The house feels different now. Quieter. More honest. Like a space where love matters more than appearances, where a child's needs outweigh adult pride. Marcus has chosen his son. The question now is what they'll build together in the space that choice has created. 6 months later, everything feels different. Marcus walks David through the bright hallways of Riverside Academy, their hands moving in the morning greeting they've perfected together. "Good morning, Mrs. Rodriguez." They sign to David's teacher, who signs back with a warm smile that reaches her eyes. This isn't the sterile environment of David's previous school, where his autism was treated like a problem to solve. Here, children move at their own pace. Some wear noise-canceling headphones. Others carry fidget toys that help them focus. Teachers speak in multiple languages, verbal, sign, visual supports, because they understand that communication comes in different forms for different minds. David bounds toward his classroom, no longer the anxious child who used to cling to Marcus's leg during drop-offs. He waves to Tommy, another autistic boy who shares his love of organizing objects by color. He high-fives Sarah, a girl who processes the world through touch the same way David processes it through visual patterns. For the first time in his 7 years, David has friends who understand why he needs things to be a certain way, who don't see his differences as barriers to overcome, but as interesting perspectives to appreciate. He's teaching the other kids about train schedules, Mrs. Rodriguez tells Marcus. Yesterday, he helped organize our entire classroom library by both color and topic. The children love his system. It makes finding books so much easier. Marcus feels his chest warm with pride. David isn't just being accommodated here. He's contributing, leading, sharing his unique strengths with a community that values what he brings. The drive home takes them through neighborhoods where Marcus used to feel like an outsider in his own life. Now he notices things differently. The coffee shop with menu boards placed at child height. The library with quiet reading corners and sensory-friendly lighting. The park where children of all abilities play together on equipment designed for everyone. David's inclusion in the world has opened Marcus's eyes to possibilities he never considered before. At home, the changes are even more profound. Zoe has transformed their house from a marble museum into a living, breathing space that works for everyone who inhabits it. Soft lighting replaces harsh fluorescence. Texture walls provide sensory input when David needs to touch something that feels right. A quiet corner with weighted blankets offers retreat when the world feels too much. But the changes go deeper than environmental modifications. Zoe has evolved from employee to something Marcus never expected, a true partner in creating David's future. The parent-teacher conference is Thursday, she mentions during dinner, pulling out a calendar where she's noted every important date in David's academic and therapeutic life. And Dr. Kim wants to discuss David's communication assessment results. Marcus realizes he's been asking Zoe's opinion on everything lately, not because she works for him, but because her perspective consistently reveals possibilities he misses. When his business partner suggested a merger that would require more travel, Zoe helped him think through how that would affect David's routines. When David showed interest in music, Zoe researched sensory-friendly instruments before Marcus even knew such things existed. They've become a team in ways that surprise him. Not employer and employee, but two adults working together to build the best possible life for a child they both love. "I never thanked you properly," Marcus says one evening as they clean up from dinner. David plays contentedly in the next room, his soft humming mixing with the gentle sounds of toy cars being organized into elaborate patterns. "For what?" Zoe asks, though something in her voice suggests she knows the conversation has shifted into deeper territory. "For seeing him first. For seeing what he needed before I understood what I was looking at. For staying when my family made it clear you weren't welcome." Zoe pauses in her dish drying, her hands still on the towel. "David made it clear I was welcome. That was the only opinion that mattered." But Marcus knows it's more complicated than that. Zoe chose to stay when leaving would have been easier. She chose to fight for David's happiness when she could have found employment with less family drama. She chose them, and in doing so, taught Marcus what choosing looks like. They built a family by choosing love over convention. Comment, chosen, if you believe family is about who shows up, not who shares blood. "I keep wondering," Marcus says carefully, testing waters he's never navigated before, "what we're building here. It doesn't look like anything I understood about family before." Zoe meets his eyes across the kitchen, and the air between them shifts with possibility neither has acknowledged until now. They've been so focused on David's needs, so careful to maintain professional boundaries, that they haven't named what's growing between them. "It looks like love," she says simply. "Different from what you had with Emma, different from what I thought family could be. But definitely love." The question hanging between them isn't whether they care about each other. That much is obvious in every shared glance, every coordinated effort to support David, every moment they've chosen to build something together rather than apart. The question is whether they're ready to risk what they've built by reaching for something more. From the living room comes the sound of David's contented humming, a child secure in a home where he's understood and valued exactly as he is. Whatever Marcus and Zoe decide about their own relationship, they've already created something beautiful. A family that chose each other, a love that multiplied rather than competed. but the air between them holds promise of even more transformation to come. 1 year later, on the anniversary of Emma's death, Marcus wakes expecting devastation. Instead, he finds David standing in front of Emma's photograph in the hallway, his small hands moving in careful, deliberate signs. "Happy anniversary, Mama," David's fingers say clearly. "I love you. I miss you. But I'm okay now." Marcus stops in the doorway, his heart caught between grief and wonder. A year ago, David couldn't express his feelings about losing his mother. The pain was too big, too overwhelming for his 7-year-old mind to process. Now he's communicating complex emotions with the confidence of a child who knows he'll be understood. "Today is Mama's special day," David explains, switching between signs and words as naturally as breathing. "We visit her. We tell her about school. We tell her about Zoe." The cemetery visit happens on a crisp October morning, leaves crunching under their feet as they walk toward Emma's grave. David carries a rolled paper in his small hands, artwork he's been working on all week with the focused intensity he brings to everything important. At Emma's headstone, David carefully unrolls his drawing and places it against the polished granite. 3 stick figures hold hands across the page, drawn in the bold, honest strokes of childhood. The figures are different heights, different colors, but their hands connect them in an unbroken chain. "Mama, Daddy, Zoe," David explains, pointing to each figure in turn. "Family." Marcus stares at his son's artwork, seeing their reality reflected in simple lines and bright colors. David hasn't replaced Emma. She remains present in the drawing as memory and love. But he's expanded his definition of family to include the woman who helped him find his voice again. "Emma would be proud of you," Zoe says softly, her hand finding David's shoulder. "You've grown so much this year." David nods with the serious consideration he gives to all-important statements. "Mama wants me to be happy. I am happy now." The truth hits Marcus like sunlight breaking through clouds. Emma would be proud, not because David has been fixed or made normal, but because he's confident, connected, loved for exactly who he is. His autism isn't something they've overcome. It's part of what makes David the remarkable child who teaches others about patience, routine, and seeing the world through different eyes. That evening, their house fills with voices and laughter as families from David's school gather for dinner. Not a formal affair with crystal and china, but a comfortable celebration where children and adults mingle freely, where communication happens in multiple languages and nobody feels out of place. Marcus watches Zoe in the living room, patiently teaching another parent the signs for please and thank you. Tommy's mother struggles with the hand positions, laughing at her own awkwardness while her son giggles at her attempts. "He's been signing at home all week," she tells Zoe gratefully. "I finally understand what he's been trying to tell us about his day at school." Sarah's father joins the conversation, eager to learn signs that will help him connect with his daughter's world. Soon a small group has formed around Zoe, parents and children learning together, breaking down barriers that seemed insurmountable just months ago. Zoe isn't just helping his family anymore. She's changing how their entire community thinks about autism and inclusion. One conversation, one patient lesson, one moment of understanding at a time. Later, after the guests have left and David has fallen asleep surrounded by the comfortable exhaustion that comes from being fully accepted by friends, Marcus and Zoe clean up the kitchen together with the easy partnership they've developed over months of shared routines. "You know," Marcus says, carefully stacking plates that held laughter and conversation, "I used to think I caught you doing something wrong that first day." Zoe pauses in wiping down counters, her attention focusing on his words. "But you weren't taking anything from us," Marcus continues, the realization growing clearer as he speaks it aloud. "You were giving us everything we were missing." The kitchen grows quiet except for the gentle sounds of dishes and dishwater, but the air between them vibrates with possibility. David needed someone who could see his brilliance instead of his challenges, Marcus says. I needed someone who could teach me how to be the father he deserved. And maybe... He stops, the words feeling too important to rush. Maybe, Zoe prompts gently. Maybe I needed someone who could show me what love looks like when it's not trying to change people, but celebrating them exactly as they are. Zoe sets down her dish rag and turns to face him fully, her eyes holding the same careful hope he feels building in his chest. Emma was your first love, she says carefully. David was your first child. I don't want to compete with either of those relationships. You're not competing, Marcus realizes, the truth settling into his bones like coming home. You're completing. Emma taught me how to love deeply. David taught me how to love unconditionally. You taught me how to love wisely, how to see what people actually need instead of what I think they should want. Marcus learned that protecting David meant accepting him. Share this story if you believe love multiplies when it's based on truth. Zoe's smile starts small and grows radiant, transforming her face with joy that's been carefully hidden for months. I love you both, she admits. I have for a long time, but I was afraid that saying it would change what we'd built together. It will change things, Marcus agrees, stepping closer until he can see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. It'll make them better, more honest, more complete. When he kisses her, it tastes like coming home after a long journey through unfamiliar territory. Like finding the missing piece of a puzzle you didn't know was incomplete. Like love that multiplies instead of divides, that creates space for everyone instead of requiring someone to be left out. From upstairs comes the soft sound of David talking to himself as he drifts towards sleep. Happy, secure, surrounded by adults who understand that his different way of seeing the world is a gift rather than a deficit. Marcus holds Zoe in his kitchen, in the house that's become a real home, surrounded by the evidence of community they've built together. Emma's love hasn't been replaced. It's been continued, expanded, transformed into something that includes everyone who chooses to show up with open hearts and patient hands. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new opportunities to advocate for inclusion, new moments to teach the world that different doesn't mean less. But tonight, love has multiplied exactly the way it's supposed to, by creating space for everyone to belong. 2 years later, on a September morning painted with golden light, David Blackwell adjusts his sensory-friendly tuxedo and takes Zoe's arm with the solemnity of a knight accepting sacred duty. "Ready?" he asks, his voice steady with the confidence of a 9-year-old who knows his place in this moment matters more than anything. Zoe nods, her wedding dress chosen not for fashion but for comfort. Soft fabrics that won't scratch, colors that won't overwhelm David's visual processing, a train short enough that he won't trip while walking her down the garden aisle. The ceremony reflects everything they've learned about love and inclusion. Sign language interpreters stand beside the officiant. Music plays at comfortable volumes. Fidget toys rest in every pew for guests who need movement to focus. Quiet spaces are marked with gentle signs for anyone requiring sensory breaks. Patricia Blackwell arrives 15 minutes late, her hesitation visible in the careful way she chooses a seat in the back row. She's missed 2 years of David's growth, but she's here now, a first step toward reconciliation that might take years more to complete. But David doesn't hold grudges. When he sees his grandmother, he waves with genuine happiness, the gesture of a child whose world is secure enough to welcome even complicated love. The ceremony itself becomes a celebration of everything they've built together. David presents the rings to his parents, because that's what Zoe is now, legally and emotionally, with the proud precision he brings to all important tasks. Marcus and Zoe's vows include promises to David, to always accept him as he is, to fight for his right to be included, to never stop learning the language that helps him navigate the world. Their commitment to each other grows from their shared commitment to loving without limits. The reception continues their theme of radical inclusion. A predictable schedule is posted for guests who find comfort in knowing what comes next. Quiet spaces remain available. Nobody judges when some families leave early or take breaks, because everyone understands that participating differently doesn't mean participating less. Marcus's best man speech captures the transformation that brought them here. "I thought I was hiring help," he says, his voice carrying across tables filled with friends from David's school, colleagues from work, neighbors who've learned to sign "good morning" because inclusion feels better than isolation. "Instead, I found a teacher who showed me that David didn't need fixing. I needed learning. I found a partner who understood that love multiplies when it's based on truth. I found a mother for my son who knew his heart before she knew his diagnosis." His voice breaks slightly with emotion. David didn't just gain a mother today. He taught his father how to love without limits. And that lesson changed everything, not just for us, but for everyone whose life we touch. They proved that when you love without limits, everyone wins. Subscribe if you believe every child deserves a family that celebrates who they are, not who they're expected to become. Later, as David sleeps in his new bedroom decorated with maps and train schedules and all his favorite organizational systems, Marcus and Zoe stand in their kitchen. The same kitchen where everything changed with a missing blue cup and patient understanding. "What legacy will we create together?" Zoe asks, her hand finding Marcus's in the quiet space where their future stretches ahead like an open road. Marcus thinks of David's friends signing at their wedding, of parents learning new ways to communicate, of a community transformed by one family's courage to love differently. "We'll keep teaching the world that different is beautiful," he says. "One family, one friend, one moment of understanding at a time." Outside, the garden where they married catches moonlight like promises waiting to be kept. Inside, love has multiplied exactly as it should, by making room for everyone to belong. Hey Soul Thread family, if you'd like to support the channel and help us keep creating these stories of hope, I've pinned a support link in the comments below. Thank you for being part of this journey.